I think all Manitobans are very concerned about their neighbors in northern Manitoba, and in particular with respect to the families in Churchill who are in the midst of having received some layoff notices. It would appear that that there is a certain amount of leveraging going on here, which is unfortunate, and I find it disappointing. Levering on the fears and hopes and the security of Manitobans is never something that I would support, and doing it to obtain a better business deal is not the way that we're going to be engaging with corporations now or in the future. We are not, as a government, as I just alluded to, interested in entering into the business of subsidizing large corporations using money taken from small businesses and from individual working people and families. And so I think all of us are concerned about the folks at Churchill who have received layoff notices. We're also concerned about the ability of families, not just in Churchill but in the north, along the rail line, to be able to receive services and transportation access. And so these are key issues to Manitobans in that area, and I think they're of concern to all Manitobans. We've been engaging on this file in partnership with the federal government. We have raised this with other provincial officials as well, and will continue to pursue solutions to this. But I want to be very clear that we will do this based on principles that we believe Manitobans subscribe to. And unprincipled approaches that rely on bailouts rather than building are not what we will pursue. And we will certainly not subscribe to short-sighted actions based on panic or leverage with no view to long-term sustainable solutions, nor will we utilize secrecy. I believe that transparency on these issues is most important. We've had valued input from a number of people on these on this Churchill issue specifically, and on northern Manitoba economic and social strategies over the last number of years. As you know, this is an issue of great interest to me and to this government. We pursued a Yes North strategy, and I won't repeat the various aspects of that today, but we are engaging very enthusiastically, not just on this specific issue, but more broadly with Northerners on how we can work together to make sure that the promise of the Golden Boy facing north is realized and not threatened.
What do you mean by leveraging?
What I mean by leveraging is, of course, that, well, what I mean by leveraging, I guess, is an agreement that was entered into just last year between the Government of Manitoba and Omnitrax as a bailout agreement. An agreement entered into to subsidize the corporation, US-based corporation, which was not made available or public. These attempts to lever capital out of the coffers of governments are not unheard of, and perhaps not even that unusual. But I don't like to see them done to the detriment of the security of people in those areas. The people in Churchill have been dealing with the uncertainty of a diminished port. When I say diminished, I mean diminished in the sense of its ability to market itself over some time, and they're not naive to the risks associated with working in a company that's losing business. But I don't like to see this type of tactical approach taken any time because it attempts to play on the fears of working people unnecessarily, I think.
You said you're not interested in subsidizing large corporations. Has the province made any commitment, or are you willing to make a commitment to to subsidize the prospective buyers of the railway and port, the First Nations in the area. And has there been any movement on that file since it was announced last November, December?
Well, there's been movement. I mean, there's been a lawsuit launched against the previous government. I guess that's a kind of movement. Positive movement, not tremendously. I think there's clearly a lot of alternative proposals that are out there right now. The one you've referenced is one of them. And there's a willingness, I think, on the part, I believe, on the part of the federal government to take a look at some of the options that have been presented. Certainly, that was a comment that was made by one of Manitoba's ministers yesterday, and it's well known that the Minister of Natural Resources has had a long association with advocacy on Churchill, and he's to be commended on that, I think. So I believe there's the potential for us to work effectively in support of what the federal government may wish to pursue as partners. The agreement, however, that the provincial government entered into last year was nothing more than a subsidy bailout done as a consequence of a threat. And now that threat is being repeated this year. And I want to be very, very clear that I don't respond ever to threats.
Would you be willing to subsidize, though, the First Nations should that sale go through?
Well, you're asking me a hypothetical question based on one proposal of perhaps several that may come forward, and I don't negotiate these things publicly. I think there's got to be discussion about how we address the issues of the rail line and clearly the port. Without the rail line, the port is not going to be functional clearly, so the two things are linked. But as far as alternative approaches on the rail line and or on the port, there are a number of ideas that are around right now. My point is that we should deal with those, but not from an element of panic, and not from an element of short-sighted piecemeal subsidy. If we are simply, we must focus on the longer-term benefits. We have seen over the last number of years the failure of the approaches that have been taken in the past. We are no further ahead this year than we were last, despite significant payouts from taxpayers to subsidize Omnitrac's operation. And so we need to take a serious look at how we deal with this in the longer term, not just go from year to year with a threat induced by a layoff of people who deserve better.
What about short-term help for people in Churchill?
Yeah,
laid
great
off,
question, yeah.
And people who rely on those people.
Now, a really important point, I think, because the alternatives for work in Churchill aren't the same as they are in, say, the city of Winnipeg or elsewhere, where you can, you're laid off, you can go and take a look next door and have a job in a fairly short time. In Churchill, it's a little different environment, plus a number of the workers that we had, my deputy premier and other members of our caucus have been in regular contact with people from not just Churchill, but from the north, including meeting with a delegation yesterday. And we have a ministerial visit scheduled for next week as well. So we'll continue to reach out and make sure we're appraised of the situation. Many of those folks are seasonal workers. They haven't got the hours yet to satisfy the basic EI requirement. We've been assured that the federal government's looking into that. I hope that it moves beyond looking into that to do what they can to make sure that there's not undue hardship there. There already has been fear there.
How much money flowed under this agreement in the 2015 shipping season? There's operating and there's capital support. So how much in each category flowed?
I think under $1 million. I don't know by subcategory, Dan, but I do know it's in excess of $800,000 so far. I'm not sure that there's an end to that ask, if I could put it that way.
So you're saying they're still submitting claims from last season? You just released the
I've been given legal advice, so I want to confront this. I've been given legal advice that there's a non-disclosure aspect to this agreement. I don't agree with that. You know that about me, right? So whether it's Winnipeg Stadium or it's stuff like this, I don't like being put in a position of having to tell the people who pay these bills that they don't have the right to know what's going on. So I'm going to get clarification around, I don't want to break the law, and I don't want to cost taxpayers money because I open my big mouth in the interest of transparency and get us sued as a province. But I really don't like it when governments take money from people, hand it to other people, and then put in the agreement that I can't talk about it. I don't like that. that's what I'm trying to sort out. I'd like to give you more detail, but I want to be very, very careful that I don't precipitate some kind of lawsuit. We've already experienced threats of lawsuits in this case.
I just want to be
So I am apologetic about not being able to give you express detail, Dan, in answer to your question.
I just want to be clear on something, Mr. Premier. You're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yeah.
your government takes over, this comes up because this was signed last year. You guys are saying that the gravy train's over and then Omnitrax goes, we're laying off people. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you got that right.
So that there's no, you don't have, you're not interested in any support for Omnitrax in exchange for a restoration of rail services or a possible future reopening of the port? There's
I wouldn't be
nothing-
dismissive of any support. I would make the point that what we do has to have a long-term view, not just respond to panic or threat. And what we do has to be transparent because we're working with other people's money. There's been $100 million taken from taxpayers across the country to support Churchill in the last few years. And I don't think it's right or fair for governments to sign agreements and give more money away while trying to hide it from the very people they took it from in the first place.
None of us have heard from Omnitrax a lot this week. What have you heard, your governor heard, from Omnitrax this week?
Well, again, the discussions around these issues have to proceed, and we'll continue to pursue those discussions.
This
Have you
agreement
spoken to Mark Tweed?
I have never disclosed to you who I've spoken to without their permission. I won't do that. I won't start that.
This agreement is for the 2015 shipping season, so they could only, under this agreement, claim expenses against that season. So without going into the specific details, has Omnitrax asked that this agreement be renewed for 2016, amended to pay them more money, or have they not made any specific ask of the province?
You don't want me to go there.
I'm not asking you for the figures, but if they have, okay.
Well,
we'll do
again,
one
this-
at a time.
This,
Your answer, yeah.
This-
Indicated that there was an ask for 2016.
there's, okay, again, I'm gonna endeavor, I haven't got clarity from our legal people as to whether I can say without violating the terms of this agreement and in other agreements. I'm put in a very difficult situation as the Premier of Manitoba. Because I'm bound by, I am told, and I am trying to determine to what degree, I am bound by an agreement made by the previous administration not to disclose certain information. I do not like being bound. I do not want to cause Manitoba taxpayers to lose an extra dollar. And I am stuck between two things that are very difficult for me. I'd like to tell you everything about this, but I cannot risk at this point, nor will I, risk additional losses being incurred by Manitobans as a result of breaking a legal agreement signed by the previous administration. So as much as I find it distasteful,
Of this year.
I'm sorry,
So what-
Steve?
This agreement expired March 31st of this year, so Jeff's question that I think you sort of answered.
Yeah.
Was there a request for more, a new agreement for 2016? After the expiry of this agreement that you're bound by?
there's more to discuss on this. I'm endeavoring to get a clear answer if that's possible from the legal advisors who know more about this than I do. I'm not a lawyer, but
But
I,
it's fair to say you didn't sign another one of these. If there's
well,
no.
certainly I haven't.
All right.
Nor do I plan on it. And if I do plan on it and I do sign it, you'll see it. I guess that's the best I can do today. And again, I'm apologetic here, but I'm giving you all the information I know that I can without triggering unnecessarily a lawsuit. And again, it's not fun for me right now because my nature is I want to tell you everything. I don't think this agreement, the last year's or maybe another one, should ever have been signed with a non-disclosure component to it. I think Manitobans should have had the chance to see the agreement. Manitobans should have had the chance to see where their money was going. I don't think it benefits the people in the area at all to hide the fact that Omnitrax was being bailed out by the previous administration under an agreement, and I don't think it benefits Manitobans that this was hidden from them at all.
But you
That
released
is clear.
This agreement,
Yeah.
so presumably it's just safe to say whether there is a new agreement since then. If you're releasing this agreement, can you tell us whether there's been a new agreement?
Just, I gotta get approval. No, so, yeah. Well, she's been talking to lawyers and I haven't, so.
Fair enough. We're laughing at on
Okay, so what I can do is I can say, yes, there's a letter that's in existence. This letter signifies an expression of desire to see an agreement in place. But I cannot, at this point, give you the contents of the letter or refer to the letter.
And that's for the 2016 season.
That's correct.
So.
And I think, and what I would say, sorry, Dan, but what I would say is this shows you the danger of any kind of subsidy approach like this. Once you do it, how do you not do it? You see? In subsequent years, and it doesn't make the people of Churchill any better off having done this. So, again, sorry to dance, but
When was it
you know the reasons.
did you receive confirmed information from Omnitrax that the port season would be scuttled? How far in advance?
We did not receive information from Omnitrax.
So when they closed the port and the news came out of
It was
Churchill.
news- We got it when you got it.
Okay. So prior to that though, I think many of us are operating in the information that Omnitrax had been going around telling a lot of people that it was fearful about this upcoming season. So when did you, either in opposition or in government, when did you talk to someone who knew that there were problems brewing and that this could threaten the season?
Problems were expressed repeatedly over not just this year, but last and before that. These are not a secret.
So I'm just wondering if.
They have been. These are problems of long standing. There was a very I thought it's a very good article in one of our newspapers today from Lloyd Axworthy talking about the history of it. Very focused article referencing sort of the background, the Port Authority, the task force, the various work that has gone on, and that's only some of, in that article, some of the investigative work and research that's gone on and the outreach that's gone on. This has been an ongoing threat, and it wasn't specifically last year or this that the concerns about the Port of Churchill came to light. So it's of long standing.
Do you believe that Omnitrax has held up its end of the bargain, subsidies aside? Have they spent their own money on capital improvements? Have they put their own money into marketing the port? Have they, as a private sector entity, have they done enough to find business for both the railway and the port?
There's an element of an element of concern here that is very legitimate, I think, and I don't wish today to vilify Omnitrax apart from the tactical reference I made earlier.
So do you think, how would you characterize how on this issue, I know you don't want to vilify Omnitrax on anything else, but on this issue, how do you characterize and feel Omnitrax has acted, behaved?
Well, Omnitrax is making a threat, and they've acted on the threat. But they were rewarded for doing that last year by the previous administration, and I want to be clear, and today I'm making it clear, that they won't be rewarded on that basis this year.
But your former colleague, Mr. Ritz, said yesterday that they did not take advantage of subsidies available and did not use their own money to go and upgrade the rail and the port. We've heard from numerous experts over the last few days about how the railway and the port really don't meet modern standards, are inefficient. So I'm going to re-ask, are you certain you don't want to tell us how you feel about the infrastructure investments made by Omnitrax?
What I'm interested in is finding a sustainable long-term solution to the problem that has not been one that has been easy to find for a long period of time.
What would that look
And what it would look like, we'll have to have that discussion with partners, and we are. And we'll continue to have it until we reach a solution. But what we won't do is overreact to threat, panic, pursue a short-term solution using a subsidy mechanism, or hide from the discussion. That's why I'm here today. I'm disappointed that I can't tell you some other aspects of this, but again, we'll attempt I will attempt to give you every bit of information that I can on the issue because I think it's important we discuss it. I am hopeful. I've enjoyed discussion with the people of Churchill and people from the north in respect of their hopes around what could happen there. I'm very hopeful that we could improve the economy, not just of Churchill or communities along the line, but also of the north generally. We have pursued a number of initiatives already and prepared for that in opposition that would help the economy of the north grow, not specifically to tourism, but also to economic development. I am in active pursuit of improvements that would allow us to get back into the business of exploration. I'm working very diligently with First Nations leaders to find ways that we could encourage that exploration to occur so that at some point we can move towards resource development. I want to move towards a model of cooperative resource development that sees benefits accrue to communities where that development occurs, not exclusively to the provincial treasury. I'm looking for a variety of ways, and as are my cabinet and caucus, to reach out and be sure we're in touch with the concerns of Northerners, and we're going to continue to pursue those relationships. So I'm very dedicated, and our government is very dedicated, to finding ways to assist all of us with a better economy and better social climate. And that is particularly on evidence here. But I want to be clear that this lack of transparency and this bailout approach are not helpful. And there's classic evidence of that, and that's why we're talking today. This is not an approach that should have been taken. It was, and we're no further ahead today than we were a year ago, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Were you briefed as to why the Matthias Cologne deal has not happened? I mean, in December we heard there was have you been briefed as to why that deal never happened? Again, how does it relate to this?
There are a number of proposals that are out there. This is where effective outcomes and transparency run up against each other, right? Me telling you where negotiation and discussion is at in respect of this is not going to help get better results. I'm not interested in anything but better results and better outcomes.
Do you think
Is there
all-
anything
all
But
you
we should
guys-
give these guys a
Sorry,
chance to
last-
sort. So,
Is there anything though that you can do to help facilitate the deal with the consortium?
well, there's a lot I could do if I chose to pick one deal and if I chose to jump in front of the federal government's process, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to work in consultation with the people at the federal government level who have an expressed obligation in this respect, and I will work very diligently to refine a process that gets us better outcomes.